Are you the type that never wears red lips because it just doesn't look quite right on you, but you can't figure out why? Why exactly is it that for women like Taylor Swift or Dita Von Teese, it looks like bright red lips are just meant for them, but when you try rocking the same color, you feel that it makes you look like a clown? Today, I'm introducing a two-part series on the topic of makeup focal points. This video is part one of the series where I'll be talking about some of the specific physical features that might steer you away from making your lips the focal point of your makeup. There's lots of great takeaways throughout the video, so make sure to stay tuned till the end, because who else would give you these kinds of tips other than me? There are a few factors that might have made you wonder why red lips on you look a little off or just not as natural as they do on someone else. The first factor is if you have a narrow mouth. Now, I want to make it clear that I'm talking about the width of the mouth itself rather than the thickness of the lips. Because if it's thin lips you're concerned about, you can overdraw your lips to compensate for it to a certain extent. And because overdrawn lips are extremely popular and trendy right now, there's lots of resources for you out there if you have thin lips. But when the width of the mouth itself is on the narrower side, overdrawing your lips has its limits. Let's use Amy Schumer and BB Rexa as examples. For both of these ladies, the width of their mouths is on the narrower side, especially when you compare it to the width of their noses. A bright lip color naturally draws more attention to Amy's and BB's lip area and highlight the size of their mouths, not only because the color pops, but also because the bright color draws a very definitive line between the lips and the skin around the lips. So there's a couple of things you can do if you have a narrow mouth. First thing is obviously making your eyes the focal point of your makeup look to draw the attention away from your lips. For BB, making her eyes the focal point of her makeup look actually works in her favor because she has huge eyes that can pull off bold eye makeup really well. Now for Amy, one thing to note is that her eyes are pretty close set, so she should focus on emphasizing the outer corners of her eyes more with makeup than the inner corners. And using a lighter color in the heads of the brows is also another technique she can use to make her eyes appear more wide set. So instead of this kind of makeup, she should use less highlighter in the inner corners of her eyes and also lighten the heads of her brows like this. Can you see how Amy's eyes look far less close set in the Photoshopped version? Another trick you can use is using big and bold earrings as a prop to distract the eyes, because big bold earrings will draw the eyes horizontally and help with taking the attention away from the lips. If we compare these two photos, you'll notice that with the bold earrings, there's less focus on how narrow Amy's mouth appears. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, well, what about somebody like Julia Roberts, who obviously has a wide mouth? How come she doesn't wear red lips more often? Which brings me to the next factor that might steer you away from red lips. And that's if you already have a feature in the lower part of your face that naturally draws more attention. Julia Roberts rarely wears red lips. I spent quite a bit of time searching for photos of Julia with red lips, and I just really couldn't find anything other than some old photos from Pretty Woman. And the reason why Julia might choose not to wear red lips more often is because other than her mouth, the tip of her nose is actually another feature in her face that naturally draws more attention. Obviously, it's her big smile that really steals the eyes, but because the tip of her nose is on the longer side, it also naturally draws more attention. If you look at these photos, you'll notice that your eyes are more drawn to Julia's lower face rather than Sandra Bullock's, even though it's Sandra that's wearing the bright lips. So for someone like Julia, because how her eyes are already naturally drawn to her lower face, she really doesn't need to attract more attention to the area. Wearing more muted colors on her lips and making the eyes the focal point of her makeup makes her face appear more balanced because it helps with diverging the attention to the upper half of her face. Jennifer Aniston is another great example. Jen also never really wears red lips, and the only photos I could find of her with red lips were as Rachel. I've talked about this in my previous videos that Jen uses a couple of different techniques with her hair to draw the attention away from her chin and the jawline. So wearing a bright color on her lips would defeat the purpose of Jen using her hair to draw the attention away. I myself have a notable feature in my lower face. I've mentioned this a couple of times, but my philtrum is on the longer side, and that becomes more noticeable when I wear red lips. And I've mentioned in the past about how a longer philtrum can make a person appear more mature. And when I wear red lips, I definitely feel that way. Compare me today to me in this photo. Now you'll see what I mean when I say that I look a little more mature with the red lips. And for that reason, I generally don't wear red lips for my casual daily looks. I usually save it for occasions when I need to dress a little more formally, like for a wedding or something. Another reason why red lips might look a little off on you could be that your natural color palette doesn't include bright or strong colors. You've probably heard of the seasonal color palettes before. If you haven't, in a nutshell, the theory is that you will fall into one of the 4 seasonal color categories based on your natural skin tone, hair color, eye color, etc. 3 factors determine your season. 1, whether warm colors or cool colors look better on you, and 2, whether you look better in light or dark colors, and 3, whether you look better in saturated or muted colors. After I complete this series on Makeup Focal Point, I plan on starting a new series around the seasonal color palettes. So if you're interested, make sure you subscribe. So when you wear red lips, it just seems overpowering, or it feels like the color just sits on top of you. It could be that a bright and saturated color like red is just not in your natural color palette. Let's use Nicole Richie as an example. She's widely agreed upon as a soft autumn, which means warm, muted colors that are low in saturation are the colors that look the most harmonious on her. So again, I didn't find many photos of Nicole wearing bright red lips, but when we look at the photos that I did find, we can see how the bright color just kind of sits on top of her and looks a little bit unnatural, compared to when she wears more toned down colors, which look a lot more harmonious and natural on her. So if you have a soft or muted color palette where highly saturated colors just don't really look natural on you, then you should opt for less strong shades of reds, like a brick red or a dark rose. So what is it about women like Taylor Swift and Dita Von Teese that makes them so suitable for red lips? The first factor is related to what we just talked about, which is your personal color palette. Unlike Nicole, Taylor and Dita have bright saturated colors in their color palettes. Gwen Stefani is a similar case. Red lips brightens Gwen's face instantly as opposed to muted lips, which makes her look a lot more pale. One more feature that Taylor and Dita have in common is the shape of their eyes. Specifically, it's the shape of the outer corner of their eyes, and these kinds of eyes need to be a little more careful with the amount or the style of eye makeup they use because their eyes could easily appear smaller with too much makeup. I talk more about this feature in part 2 of my series. Here's a summary of tips and pointers for today. If you have a narrow mouth, use the overdrawn lips technique carefully to avoid looking unnatural, or use bold earrings to distract the eyes horizontally. If you have features that draw more attention to your lower face, make your eyes the focal point of your makeup to balance out the attention. If your color palette is soft or muted, use more subtle colors of red that are less saturated for a more natural look. But as always, in the end, it all comes down to your preference and how you see yourself. So don't be too bogged down by these suggestions because they're meant to be used as guidelines rather than strict rules. If you've enjoyed this video, please take a moment to press those like and subscribe buttons and turn on your notification for the next new video on my channel. And here's the next video you should watch. Until next time, stay unique and stay gorgeous.